recording. And I will go ahead and start our meeting and read our favorite notice at the beginning. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. The board meeting will be held via an online platform which can be accessed at the district's website under the Board tab. The meeting can also be accessed by phone at 1-415-655-0001, access code 120-319-5351. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and any other business to come properly before the board. At the conclusion of the public meeting, the board will move immediately into a workshop via WebEx platform, which has a separate web link also under the board tab on the district website. And that meeting can also be accessed by phone at 1-415-655-0001, access code 120-319-5351. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, January 28, 2021, must be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Letter, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to make public comments twice during the virtual meeting. In the beginning of the meeting, the public may comment on agenda items only, and at the end of the meeting, the public can comment on any topic. At the appropriate time on the agenda, the Q&A window will be opened for public access. If you wish to address the board, please type in your name and address. Individuals who are calling into the meeting and wish to speak can touch *3 to access the raise your hand function, which will notify a staff member that you want to speak. When your name is called, a staff member will unmute your microphone. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the remote meeting, the board president may mute the speaker's microphone. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the virtual meeting. Dana, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Sahar Aziz.
Here.
Michael Beelan.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Rob Garrison.
Here.
Layla Morelli. Gretchen Oleg.
Here.
Tara Porto.
Here.
Sonal Patel.
Here.
Amy Root.
Here. All right. Brendan, could you get in the flag salute, please?
My pleasure.
Dana has one there.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. I think we have a big night for announcements. Sahar, would you? Oh, is Sahar still here? Yes, there you are. Sorry, you went to picture mode. Hi. Could you kick us off with the first announcement, please, Sahar?
Oh, I think I
would you like a moment? That's okay. Why
Yes.
you look it up. We'll ask Mike if he'll read his first, please.
Sure. Congratulations to the Westfield High School choir members, Sam Horvath, Zaire Katz, Aishik Pallet, and Matthew Meixner for their acceptances into the 2021 National Association for Music Education All Eastern Chorus. These talented singers will participate in a series of rehearsals, master classes, and sections that will culminate in a virtual choir performance on Friday, April 23rd. Congratulations on this prestigious achievement. Thank you.
Sahar, are you ready yet, or should we move?
Keep going, because I'm having some internet problems. I'm just trying to find the.
All right. Okay. Let's see. Could we go to Rob Garrison, please?
Sure. This Saturday, February 6th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., Westfield High School 12th grader Mira Mehta
will co-facilitate a virtual statewide youth listening session entitled Are You Informed? As part of an outreach program or outreach campaign by the New Jersey Civic Information Consortium. The consortium is a new state initiative created by state legislation to grow access to local news and information across New Jersey. Participants under the age of 21 in New Jersey will be invited to share how they get local news and information, how much they are involved in civic issues locally, and ideas for the future of journalism and civic information. For more information and to register in advance, interested participants can visit https areyouinformednj.weebly.com.
All right, perfect. Let's see. Gretchen, I believe you have two this evening. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Great.
So the first announcement is we want to encourage you to check out the December-January edition of Arts a la carte for a glimpse into the many creative ways our students continue to produce compelling art and music even during these virtual times. A special thank you to the Visual and Performing Arts Department and to our talented art and music instructors for sharing student work through this informative newsletter, which can be found under the Departments tab on the district's website. And then my second announcement is the Westfield High School Choral Department will present a virtual version of its annual Night of Love Songs on Saturday, February 6th at 7 p.m. The free concert will be live streamed on the Westfield High School Choir Facebook page at Westfield Choir Family. Don't miss this beautiful annual tradition, which features love songs sung by students in Bella Cora, Concert Choir, and our chorale. That's all.
All right, great, thanks. Something to do on a cold Saturday night. Let's see. Sorry, Tara. Tara, you have one?
Yep. You ready?
Yep.
The Westfield Municipal Alliance and the Westfield High School Dream Team recognized student finalists in the 8th Annual Palooza Contest during a virtual ceremony on January 27th. The students in grades 1 through 12 were recognized for their submissions of posters, poetry, and public service announcements, which depicted the theme, Westfield, live your best life, healthy choices, everyday choices. A list of the finalists can be found on the district website under recent news. Congratulations to all.
Okay. Sonal, you have one, right?
Yes. On Thursday, February 11th at 7 p.m., the College Women's Club of Westfield will host a virtual hour-long discussion focusing on the mental health and wellness of high school and college women during the pandemic and beyond. More information on this free event, including how to register, can be found on the Community Flyers page under Family Resources on the district website or by visiting cwclubwestfield.org. Details on how to join the webinar will be sent upon registration. Email cwc.westfield@gmail.com with any questions.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Sar?
Yes, sorry about time.
No problem.
I'm still new. Just reading through the Word document. Okay, here we go.
Well, and even those of us who aren't new have trouble juggling all this sometimes, so please, go ahead.
Okay. Westfield High School's Model United Nations Club won the Outstanding Delegation Award for excelling in all parts of the annual conference of the YMCA Model UN program, which was held virtually this year during the first week of January. Approximately 100 Westfield students participated, with many holding leadership positions and receiving recognition, including Justin Anderson, who was selected to serve as Secretary General for next year's conference and to participate in the 2-week conference on national affairs, which is attended by representatives from all 50 states. For more on this important annual event, including a list of student recognitions, visit recent news on the district website. Congratulations to the students.
That's great. That's a big difference from how I've done it before, obviously. So glad they were still able to. All right, let's see. I think Brendan, you have everybody's favorite?
I do have everybody's favorite announcement. All Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Monday, February 15th in observance for President's Day.
All right. Terrific. Thank you for that one. And of course, we'll all continue to monitor the weather, but glad we have the option of saving our snow or otherwise emergency days for those really absolutely necessary ones. All right, and then I have the last announcement, which is that a special meeting of the Westfield Board of Education will be held this Thursday, February 4th at 7 p.m. The purpose of the meeting is to appoint a consulting firm to conduct a search for a new superintendent. The board will immediately go into executive session. At the conclusion of the executive session, the board expects to go back into public session and approve a consulting firm. Instructions regarding remote access to the public portion of the meeting are on the district website at westfieldnjk12.org under the board tab. Following the special meeting on Thursday, the next regular meeting of the Westfield Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, February 23rd, beginning at 7 p.m. The meeting is expected to be held virtually. The complete agenda of that meeting will be available on Friday, February 19th on the district website. All right. A little bit of a departure, but different times call for different measures here. At this point in the meeting, this is our first time to recognize the public if they have comments on agenda items only. So again, following the directions that I read at the beginning, and maybe everybody heard them, Brian Ocker, our technology specialist, is going to open up Q&A section. And if you have a comment that you would like to make, if you could type in your name and your address, and Brian will, that's for people who are watching the WebEx version of the meeting. If you do that, Brian will unmute your microphone and call on you. If anyone is called in, there's apparently a *3 raise your hand function. So we'll just wait a few minutes and see if anyone has any comment at this portion of the meeting. There will also be a time later in the meeting if you want to wait for that. I'm not seeing anything, but I think I might have accidentally shut down the Q&A portion. But Brian's monitoring it closely. Okay. There will be a portion near the end of the meeting. After liaison reports, for those of you who are going to stick it out with us till the very end, there'll be another opportunity to comment at that portion of the meeting. So I think we will go ahead. And we have up next on the agenda is Dr. Dolan with the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
So actually, two announcements about our high school tonight. So first, beginning this Friday, February 5th, high school students who are in cohorts A and B will be able to attend high school 4 days a week. This will be in place for all of the third marking period. Now, this is possible because all the parents at the high school were asked to choose did they want their children to attend the high school for the third marking period in person, in hybrid, or remote. And because 75% of the students were placed in remote by their parents, this obviously left us with approximately 25%, right? With 25%, the numbers worked. They were small enough. The administrators at the high school, principals, Fendis, and the assistant principals actually went class by class to make sure that the combined number of cohorts A and B for every section in the high school would fit in there in the classrooms and still allow for 6 feet, right? 6 feet between every person in the room. Some of the classes had to be moved to different spaces because of that, but it does work. So all of the classes where cohorts A and B are joining, everyone will still be spaced at 6 feet. Now, just because this question comes up frequently, we're very glad to be able to offer that to the high school students for the third marking period. That's the commitment time at this point. While we would be very happy to offer that at different levels, it just doesn't work. We actually have the inverse. We have approximately 75% of the students at the other schools whose parents want them to come in person, right? And it's not too hard to understand why, actually. But with 75% who want to attend, there's no way we can fit the students combined cohort A and B safely. So that's the challenge, right? But we are able to do it at the high school, and we're very glad to be able to do that starting this Friday. And we're very happy to welcome them. A second topic at the high school is we have a committed group of students at the high school who have been hard at work producing a weekly television show for the high school. It's available to everyone in the high school community. It's also on YouTube if you look up Blue Devil Television. Now, part of what they did just recently, we've all been talking about the importance of our role during the pandemic. And it's been a long time. We certainly all understand that. And so everyone is trying to remind each other we have to follow the rules. This is not over, unfortunately. So a few of our students worked on this, and they have written and filmed and produced a public service announcement regarding the ways we can all do our part during this pandemic. So I think I'm going to ask Brian to show the short public service announcement.
The COVID-19 pandemic has altered the lives of people all around the world. Masks and social distancing tasks have become a new staple in daily life. As much as they are annoying, they're truly necessary to the safety of others as well as the eventual end of this pandemic. Masks are especially important for students because even if we don't notice it, we have the power to have a hand in the end of this pandemic.
You don't know who can be at risk for COVID, and you don't know who could have underlying conditions. So it's important to social distance to keep everyone and their loved ones safe.
I think the least we can do right now is wear masks and social distance until we have everything under control.
Social distancing is a proven way to stop the spread. By staying 6 feet apart, the risk of spreading the COVID particles is limited, and by wearing a mask, you can further help limit this risk. The New Jersey Department of Health states that wearing a face covering or mask has been shown to dramatically decrease the release of droplets from people's mouths, which can carry infectious particles.
Masks and social distancing are very useful in bringing the numbers down because it's been proven. In every town that encourages them, you can see the numbers go down.
In case you're wondering what 6 feet looks like, here are 2 volunteers to help visualize this important distance. As you can see here, these individuals are standing on either side of a measuring tape, which is laying on the ground. The measuring tape is 6 feet long and represents the distance that you should have between you and anyone outside of your household. It is always better to overestimate the distance rather than underestimate, so if you ever find yourself unsure if you and another person are 6 feet apart, don't be afraid to take a few steps back.
Students should not be gathering. It's a very selfish thing to do right now. I know that, it might be what you want and you might need to fuel your social battery, but we have so many digital options that keeping in touch with your friends is not impossible in this era. So just hold out. Wait, everything will be fine, just don't gather.
It's simple. Masks and social distancing are the foolproof way to stop the spread. As students, we can help save lives, but only if we follow these rules.
And remember, Westfield, wear masks, avoid social gatherings, and social distance.
The COVID-19 pandemic has altered the lives of people all around the world. Masks and social distancing tasks have become a staple in daily life.
So I would certainly like to thank the students for their work on that. Often students will listen a great deal more to their peers than they might to the adults. And I'd like to thank them for the creativity as well. And I think it's a message all of us need reminding about at this point. With that, are there any questions?
I just have a question about the high school schedule. I'm just wondering if parents who selected remote knew prior that this could be a possibility, and I'm wondering if we should anticipate some parents now knowing that it's going to be 4 days a week, if that would have changed their opinion on what they wanted for their child, and how do we plan to handle that?
Sure. I had checked with Mrs. Aspendis, I think that was on Monday, to ask if there were any situations like that, and I hadn't, at that point I was told that there weren't. I think that was Monday, though, in the early stages of the storm. I haven't spoken with her regarding that yet since then. We tried to, in the letter that Mrs. Aspendis sent, we explained that we were trying to determine the numbers. So could there have been some parents who didn't understand that? You know, there could have been. I haven't heard about that yet, but I certainly will continue to talk to Mrs. Aspendis about it.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add that I always love it when we get to see the students in any capacity. You know, we miss seeing them. Sometimes they come to our board meetings and we get to recognize them for their achievements, which is always great. But the video clips are really good too. And it's astonishing to me remembering what the high school is like when it's at full capacity during a school day, which is granted hard for parents to really see at any point anyway. To see the difference, it is really, really dramatic. And obviously the kids are social distancing and wearing their masks, which is great and essential. But it's wonderful to see them in their natural habitat.
I would have to agree.
Amy, if I may, on a separate note, I know Dr. Dolan, it's not part of your direct report, but I did want to thank the district and the building and maintenance staff for everything they did. You know, I live across the street and up the block from Wilson School, and I saw them working hard yesterday through today. Yeah, even though school is remote, a lot of kids like to play at the school playgrounds and areas, and they did a tremendous job over by us at Wilson School. So I want to just make sure to thank the district and the maintenance and building staff.
I would certainly echo that. They across the district, they have been working hard and long, and really paying attention. They really take great pride in it, and we appreciate all their efforts.
Here, I would like to second that. I was doing some panic buying on Sunday evening and came home past 302 Elm Street and saw all the trucks ready with the snowplows up front, and thought, well, you know, these folks are ready. So thank you. Thank you on behalf of all of us for all their hard work and effort. So we really appreciate it.
And I'll third that. Being a neighbor to McKinley, the crews were out there probably 12 hours yesterday, clearing sidewalks and doing everything else they need to do to make sure school's ready to open as soon as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Dolan, or should we go ahead and move along here with the agenda?
I think you can move along.
Okay. All right. Thank you then. I would like the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on January 19th, 2021, and the private minutes of January 19th, 2021. Can I have a second? Looks like I saw Rob's hand go up. Oh, okay. I'm going to say Rob just because I saw him first. And voice vote, Dana, is that right? I'm sorry. I should know this. Yes. Okay. All in favor?
In favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. If there's any abstentions or no's? No? Okay, good. All right, then moving along to personnel, which comes first and is usually very robust. I would like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 15. May I have a second?
Second.
Great, thank you, Tara. Okay, I believe we will turn Dr. Dolan's mic back up for a moment.
This is true, because tonight there are 3 retirements to recognize. These 3 staff members have served the district for a total of 62 years. So Patricia Sika has served 15 years as a lunch aide in Franklin Elementary School. Ann Ayers is completing her 25th year as a Tamaulipas lunch aide. And those of you who have had children go through our elementary schools, you know how important those lunch aides are. So we certainly have missed them since last March because we haven't had lunch, but they are an integral part of elementary schools. And so we wish Patricia and Ann the best. And then we have Diane Smith. Diane Smith has spent 22 years as an elementary librarian working in Wilson and Tamaulipas and Lincoln. She is someone who loves reading and has worked to share that love with all of her young students. So we wish Diane well in her retirement as well.
Dr. Dolan, if I may, just on Diane Smith, I'll tell you, I've been in the school quite a bit over the years since Maya's in 5th grade now. And there isn't a time that Ms. Smith didn't take the time to talk to us, talk to me, talk about the library, the pride she had in the library, and the way she interacted with the students. It really was tremendous. So it's gonna be a big loss for Wilson School. So definitely want to wish her all the best.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I would like to echo that actually. It's because of Diane Smith. She kicked off my volunteering in schools career, if you will. We used to, back in those days when my now 21-year-old was a kindergartner, parents were allowed to come in and reshelve books, and occasionally if you proved yourself worthy, you could even check out the books for the kids if you could handle it. So she was definitely a part of our experience at Wilson too, and we will miss her. And I'm sure those from Tamaulipas and Franklin will miss her retirees as well. Okay. There's no other comments. Dana, we'll have a vote.
I have a quick question.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
That's all right. First, congratulations to those who are retiring, and we're sad to see them go, but we're fortunate to have had them. I just have a question about, so I noticed there's a long list of people who are going on leave, and I'm curious to know if the volume is typical, or is it higher than usual because of COVID? And if it is higher than usual, how are we addressing their absence? In terms of, are we just getting more substitute teachers, or how is, again, I don't have context, so this just may be the typical amount, but as a newcomer, it just seems like, wow, there's a lot of people every month that are going on leave. And how is that affecting our staffing?
It is kind of COVID normal, but maybe we'll see if Dr. Dolan, were you going to say something?
Sure, I would say yes. This has been a year with personnel like never before, and it's constantly challenging, right? Leaves after leaves for various reasons, and then people come back, right? And then Mrs. Ball, who's head of HR, as well as the administrators, have been very creative in reaching out to get replacements. But the other thing I will say is some people who had to be on leaves for some reasons have been coming back also. So it's both. It's constantly in motion. Is it more than you would normally see? It absolutely is. It absolutely is. But so far, because of Mrs. Ball and the administrators, we've been able to keep up with this. We plan to keep going, but do I worry about it sometimes? I absolutely do. But as of now, we've been able to keep up with all this.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions? No? Okay. Dana?
Sahar Aziz?
Yes.
Mike Phelan?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Rob Garrison?
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg?
Yes.
Tara Porto?
Yes.
Sonal Patel?
Yes.
Amy Root?
Yes. All right. Barbara, keep up the good work for us, please. All right. Moving along. Facilities. Mike?
Yeah, just a short update. Just to let everyone know, the Edison Field Committee, which has representatives from the Board of Ed and the town, we continue to meet with Spiza Architects on that on the Edison Field project. No information to share, but just letting everyone know the progress is continuing to be made. once we have information to share, it will be available. And our next facilities meeting will be held on February 12th. That's all.
All right. Great. Thank you. Well, hi, Gretchen.
Hey, Amy. I have no report tonight.
Okay. All right. Understandable. Thank you. Policies, Brendan.
No report as well. We will be scheduling our upcoming meeting as soon as we select a consultant and set a meeting date for the meeting calendar with the board. As most of those meetings will be in the evening, and policies also meets in the evening. We want the superintendent search to take priority.
Got it. All right. Terrific. Thank you. All right. Curriculum, instruction, and programs. Only one item tonight. I'd like the board to consider item number 1. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan. The only item is one candidate, student intern, for your approval. Any comments or questions? Okay. Dana?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Mike Dielan,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes. And I am very pleased to say that. Oh, sorry, Brendan. Yeah.
As we're working through hybrid and virtual, how is the student teaching program working this year? I mean, is it obviously they're assisting in the way a classroom teacher would, but is it a successful approach? Will it count towards state licensing requirements? Has there been any discussion at SIP about that?
I believe Paul might have some information there. Panero?
Yeah, it was kind of a tricky transition for a lot of the schools to get accustomed to placing, but we've been placing teachers. Sometimes they're in the classroom just like the kids, and sometimes they're working, remotely, but they're getting full credit for it. They're learning a lot more, they're learning a lot. Initially, I was skeptical that it was going to be the kind of experience that would get them ready, and I felt bad about that. But I think they're doing just fine. And they're helping quite a bit.
Thank you. Glad to hear they're helping the classroom, not just participating.
Right. And we're it's good PR for the district with people who are learning to become teachers, which is good for the long run. So hopefully we'll see some of those faces back again when they're finished. Okay. And I was just going to add that our first regular meeting of 2021 will be Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. So our next meeting we'll have a few more items to do. All right. Moving on, finance. Rob, what can you tell us?
Yes. We have items number 1 through 9 to approve this evening. So I don't know if I can get a second.
Second, Rob.
Second, Brendan. As we usually do, we do make special note of a couple items. So there is a gift of $500 from Mr. Richard Chang to support the special services program at the Westfield High School. And then you'll also see 4 items that Dana staff and Duthie and staff have certainly earned their money on for renovations. As you'll see, that there are items for the Jefferson Elementary School AB renovations and exterior doors, the Jefferson Washington Elementary School's toilet renovations, and the Roosevelt Intermediate School Room 500 renovations. So you'll see another item in our finance packet that is transferring from our reserve account to the capital fund account in the amount of $2,107,989 for those renovations to cover that. So there were certainly a lot of projects coming up, and looks like we will be moving forward, which is great. Dana, do you want to take a roll call?
Sure. Sahar Aziz.
Can we discuss? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are we voting? Sorry. Before we vote, sorry. I just, because I'm still again learning. So are these renovations something that we do on a regular basis? I'm just trying to, because the amount it seems very high, $2 million. And so is this something that we do every year and we generally spend around that range for renovations, or is this because perhaps it's an opportunity that students aren't in the building, right, full time? But if I could we get a little bit of context?
Sure. So we do, Rob, do you want me to answer that?
Please, thank you.
So we actually have a 5-year plan for renovations to the buildings. Every year we do a number of projects. It varies on how big the projects are from year to year. At one of our meetings in March, I think it's the second meeting in March, we'll be presenting the updated 5-year plan, so you'll see what's in the works for next summer. So most of our work gets done in the summer for obvious reasons, because the buildings are, for the most part, empty in the summer, or not as full, I should say, in the summer. So these are all projects that we've been planning on doing for the last number of years in the summer of 21. It's a long process for us to do these big construction projects, because we have to prepare construction documents and bid documents and submit all kinds of applications to the state of New Jersey, and then go out for public bid, which is what we're doing now, and awarding a contract. So yeah, these have been projects we've been planning on doing. And then the next big thing that we're going to do is the HVAC updates that we talked about at the last meeting. Right. Those were projects that were in our plan, but had originally been a couple of years out, and we moved them up because of the pandemic. It made sense to make them a priority. So every year we update the 5-year plan. So some things may move back a year, or some things may move up. It depends on the situation at the time. You know, we have very old buildings, so sometimes something that we think doesn't have to get done right away may have to get done faster, or something we thought we wanted to do now becomes less of a priority.
Okay. And the funds are coming out of either reserves or existing funds. We're not borrowing money.
Correct.
To pay for it. Okay.
Correct. If we were going to borrow, we would have to go out for a bond referendum, which we would go out, the whole town would have to vote on that. All of these projects are coming out of the capital reserve.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Are you ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, so here, Sahara Aziz?
Yes.
Mike Dillon?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Bob Garrison?
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg?
Yes.
Tara Porto?
Yes.
Sonal Patel?
Yes.
Amy Root?
Yes.
And we have our next Finance Committee meeting 9 a.m. this Friday, February 5th.
Thank you very much for that. Let's see, back to Gretchen for technology and communication.
Yeah, so I think I'll start backwards, and I'll say that our next meeting is going to be on February 12th. Awesome. Mike, did you say you're going to have a facilities meeting on the 12th?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, that's so Dana and I previously scheduled.
So we have a little bit of overlap. It's probably just me that it impacts, so unless I'm not on facilities anymore. But either way, the technology and communications meeting is next Friday the 12th at 8 a.m. I don't have a formal report because we haven't met, but I thought maybe it would make sense to talk a little bit about what happened. It feels like it was a month ago. I think it was much more recently than that with the servers in the high school, because I just thought that Brian and or Dana might be able to provide a little bit more context. So the layman's version is that there was a hole undetected, a very small hole in a newly installed air conditioning unit, which caused the AC unit to break down. And what should have happened in the sense that when the room got too hot, the servers kicked off. That's about as good as I can do. So I'm going to let Brian or Dana add a little bit more color, and if anybody from the board has any more questions about that, then we can go from there.
Well, Gretchen, you had the easy part, so I'll take on the hard part here and explain the technical side of it. So while we would all be trying to equate a situation like this to what we know, what we're comfortable with in our homes, we think of our laptop computers, we think, oh, it's something minor, we reboot it, it boots back up in 30 seconds or a minute, and you're ready to go. Unfortunately, that was not the case. When the systems overheated, unfortunately, they shut down when they were in a state of saving, basically, let's just say they were saving data at the moment. And when we attempted to bring the equipment back up in the morning, we encountered multiple issues where we could not access our servers. The servers, because again, they were shut down very unexpectedly. The room heated up to a temperature of over 135 degrees. Some of our equipment internally reached temperatures of 180 degrees. So first of all, we're very fortunate that we didn't lose any equipment, that it did have the fail-safes built in to shut down. But in shutting down abruptly, like I said, it caused some corruption, possible data corruption to the systems, and we could not boot them up very easily. So the first thing that we did, of course, was to reach out to our partners and vendors for assistance. They contacted us in order to help us get all the equipment back up and running. There was just one problem. In order for them to log in remotely from outside the school district, one of the servers had to be up and running to allow them remote login access. We couldn't bring that server up because none of the servers were booting up. So for a very long 8 hours, my staff had to sit there and type commands that were relayed to them through their cell phones into a laptop computer that was connected via a cable directly into the system. After, like I said, doing that for about 8 hours, they did encounter, or they were able to set up a better remote system, and we were able to get the vendors by late that Thursday evening into the system. They were able to get in and remotely diagnose a problem. Fortunately, again, our system is built in with so many redundancies that the couple of hard drives that had some data issues were able to repair themselves. Unfortunately, that took about 5 hours that evening for them to be repaired. So after about 5 hours, it was close to midnight when the servers were functioning again, and we were able to start bringing them up. So throughout the night, I know my staff stopped working sometime around 12:30 or 1 a.m., and the partners, the technical partners, they continued working throughout the evening, or I'm sorry, throughout the very early morning, very late night hours, very early morning hours to get everything back up. However, we have so many different servers, and they cannot just be all brought up at the exact same time. They do have to be brought up in a very specific order. And some of these servers can take anywhere from 20 minutes to 30 minutes to boot up. Like, again, we're not talking about your laptop computer. There's so much data that has to be loaded. So we never lost any data. We were never in a situation where we were going to lose data. Again, this is just part of the redundancy that we have. So it did cause us a problem, that day, but we were able to go remote the next day, and we had our email back up, and we had all systems back up and running actually by 7:30 the next day. So that's the update. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Sure, I have a couple of questions. How many servers were impacted approximately?
Well, Mike, we have all of our servers virtualized, so it is one virtualized box that is running all of the virtual servers on there. So there's a good 30 or 40 different servers doing different things on there easily, if not even more, to tell you the truth. So we had quite a few servers.
How many
physical boxes that were affected? It was technically one box.
Okay, and what kind of temperature monitoring do we have on the box or in the room?
So in the room, there was a sensor that was, for some unknown reason, because we checked with the alarm company, it was tied into their monitoring station, but it was not functioning. We don't know why it was not functioning at the time. In addition to that sensor, we did have another system that was running in the room that monitored temperature. However, it only sent out email alerts. So unfortunately, at 1 o'clock in the morning, it started sending out email alerts, but it was 1 o'clock in the morning. My staff and I were all asleep. So since then, we've taken steps to arrange for a new system that will send us text alerts. So we'll start getting text messages if anything starts to happen like that again. And it will monitor not only temperature, but also moisture as well.
And when do we expect that to be in place?
That will probably be in place in the next week or two.
Okay.
Back to just a layman's question. So the teachers that were teaching remotely, or the students that were accessing like Google Docs or the Google Classroom remotely, that worked for them because it didn't involve our servers physically in our buildings. Is that right?
Correct. So, Amy, some of our systems are centralized in the district, but we also disperse and we have them outside the district in the cloud. So, again, we don't have all of our eggs in one basket. Not everything is sitting there at the high school. If we had all systems sitting there at the high school, we would have had problems then on Friday as well. So we were able to go all remote on Friday because the students would be able to access Google Meet. They would be able to access Google Classroom. They would be able to access WebEx. They would be able to access those resources, same as the teachers. So they did have access the next day. So that's why we were able to function the next day.
Brian, you keep mentioning the redundancy, and I guess I'm just trying to understand that because I don't see that it was really in place for the temperature monitoring. I understand that people might not get the emails, but if we have an option of the primary sensor in the room, why wasn't there a redundant secondary sensor that would send the alerts?
That's a good question. And again, we learn from situations like this, Mike. So we've certainly realized that we need additional monitoring capabilities than what we currently have. So that's why we're working to expand those capabilities. One of the features that we have in the new air conditioning system that was installed is that it does have remote monitoring capabilities, and it can also alert us if there are problems. Unfortunately, again, it was a brand new system. They had just turned it on that day, and those things were not configured yet. So unfortunately, it was a brand new system that no one expected, something that came from the factory that was fully factory tested. It was installed by not only a qualified HVAC vendor, but also a factory technician was on site from the manufacturer. They all signed off on it. It was working for over 9 hours that they monitored it, and everything was working great. It was just strange that it had this it had a very small pinhole leak that was underneath. That particular pipe was wrapped in insulation, so no one could actually see it or even really hear it or detect it.
Air conditioning was installed the day before. I just didn't connect that dot.
Yes, it was a brand new air conditioning system. So we previously had 2 smaller wall units that had been installed in there. And again, we had problems with those units over a period of time. But again, we were looking to replace them. Our architect, George Duthie, again, his firm spec'd out, and this is a project that George worked with us on. So they spec'd out a brand new system that would easily keep that room comfortably cool when all the equipment is running. And that AC unit had just been installed that day. And apparently it was running. No one detected that slowly this pinhole leak was allowing the coolant to escape. And it wasn't until late that night that it started to build heat in there. And eventually there was no coolant left in the system, and the room completely overheated and caused the equipment to shut down.
Okay.
Brian, is this room in a locked area? Where did this occur in the high school?
It's in our data center, and yes, there is a special lock on the door, so it's not as if anyone can just walk in there.
Okay. Just to prevent mischief, people knowing they can poke a hole and cause this to happen,
Absolutely.
I think any of our Westfield students would do such a thing, but I just want to make sure that they aren't able to say, oh, all I have to do is poke a hole in this unit and school will close for 2 days.
Brian, thank you. Dane, I was just wondering, is there any update on the HVAC end? I assume it's been repaired, everything's fine. Any recourse there, or I don't even know necessarily what our damages are, but I was just curious.
Yeah, we're holding money, which we always do in these situations. We don't pay for projects until we're 100% sure that they're done and working. And yeah, any of the costs that we incurred from any of the vendors we had to call in, or any overtime or anything like that, we're in the process of compiling that, and we'll be back charging the vendor, the contractor.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. So just first is kind of going along what I asked last time, is just to make sure that this isn't a fluke. I mean, if it is a fluke, then we just had bad luck. You get this brand new air conditioner that happens to have this tiny little hole. But just to make sure this isn't something that's a problem with these air conditioners, and perhaps because we're installing new ones, and to the extent we're using the same company, maybe they're just not the right company, or they don't have a good product. I don't know the answer.
Well, there's 2 different things. This air conditioner was specifically for a data center, so we wouldn't be putting this in the multi-purpose rooms anyway, because it's specifically made for the purpose. But also we are required to go out to bid and to award a contract to the lowest responsible bidder. So we don't get the choice of what contractors we're going to work with. That's just not something we have the ability to do. So it could be that we'll...
The cheapest, whatever's the cheapest?
Well, it's the lowest responsible bidder, and responsible is defined by the state, which may be different than what any of us would define as responsible. Responsible is mostly defined by the paperwork that they submit. We really don't have a choice. And actually, I have to say, this contractor, we've worked with him before. He's actually a good contractor. So I think this was just kind of a fluke. He's done work with us numerous times, actually.
Okay.
But if he's the lowest responsible bidder on another job, he will be working on that job because the law requires us to do that.
And Brian,
I'd also just add, I just add also that the manufacturer, I've had their equipment before, and they're a high quality unit, and we're very fortunate to be getting that, as a matter of fact, from a low bidder. So the unit is very good, and it's kind of like going out and, again, think of a car manufacturer, and I'll just pick Toyota. Toyota has a very good reputation for quality cars. Every now and then they have a lemon too. This is a high-end quality unit, and it's very, very surprising. I guess that's just why we really did not think that there would be an issue once this unit was installed.
Okay. So one other question. It is a layperson question, but it's quasi-technical, so I may be framing it wrong. But why don't we have all our servers on the cloud? In other words, why do we have any physical servers? And I'm asking because my understanding as a layperson is that everyone or most companies, most entities are now moving to the cloud, and they pay, whether it's Amazon or other companies that are now going to Microsoft, they're going to those businesses of using their servers. Is there a reason why we don't do that?
So you just mentioned one of the reasons. They have to pay. There is a recurring fee every single year to have all of your data out there on the cloud. And that's what the charge usually is based on. It's the amount of data that you have out there, not the number of servers, but the amount of data that you put out there. So if we were to take a lot of our servers and put them out there, the recurring costs, it would increase our budget exponentially. So that's one reason. Second reason is also data safety. If you think about that, who is a hacker more likely to go after? Someone big like an Amazon storage or something like that, or actually try to target us at a much smaller level? So they're a bigger target. So our data is actually, we try to make sure that our data remains safe, and we have it secured in district. And then finally, as I said earlier, also, we're just looking to have our data distributed. We don't want all of our eggs in one basket and have everything out there on the cloud. So if everything were on the cloud and we lost internet connectivity, again, then we'd be shut down again. So we would have issues. So it is a balance. It's a balancing act. And we look to see what we should host in district where it makes sense to do that, and where it makes sense to host things out of district. So that's why we do have a combination.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. That helps, because that certainly came to mind. Okay.
And Sahar, not all of our servers involve outside services. Things like the intercom system and our phone system are all housed in-house. So if the internet went down, the intercom would still work, the phone system would still work. But if it was on the cloud, all those services would go dark.
All right.
Brian, I have one other question. You mentioned about the cloud being more expensive. I've generally not found that to be. And actually, we are moving everything to the cloud because there's no upfront investment. You have less employees managing the hardware. And when you take and they're providing a lot of the maintenance for you. And I don't know whether they provide educational discounts or not. But generally, when we did a cost-benefit analysis, we're finding cloud much less expensive than all the costs that are involved in maintaining an in-house system.
Okay.
Again, Mike, we can go over the numbers in the technology committee, and take a look at that. And that's certainly something we can discuss. So, and I think I can share more of that information with the committee, and it'll be more beneficial to report then, if that makes sense to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think we're good. Brian, thank you for filling us all in and diving in a little bit deeper on that. I do appreciate it, and I'm sure the board does too. Amy, that's it from me tonight.
Okay, thank you. And it might just be a good point to reiterate here, following 2 days of bad weather, that that's really the only day that we've needed to take off this year was because of technology and because we were so reliant on it this year. So I know, some parents are waxing nostalgic about why couldn't we have had a snow day yesterday. Part of it, the reason is that we're hanging on to them because it might not be only weather that causes us to need to utilize them. So if we can find a way to make, school work the way we did yesterday and today with remote sessions in the mornings to qualify for enough of a school day that we could then cancel the afternoon sessions. I think that's a prudent use of our time and a prudent use of the days that we build into our calendar every year. We call them snow days, but we've used them for any number of reasons in the past and may have to again. So just worth mentioning that one more.
Yeah, if we closed back in December when everybody wanted a snow day, and these 2 days plus the day we had in October, we'd already be losing vacation days. We built 3 into the calendar, and we would have closed 4 times already. So being able to go virtual with the technology we have and the change to state law, at least during the COVID emergency, allows us to still have 2 more days of flexibility built into our schedule.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, that's it for committee reports portion of our agenda. Just would like the board to consider only a singular note for the record. And then do we have any unfinished business that anyone wants to bring up? No. New business? No. Liaison reports? Does anyone have any report there? Oh, sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I have 2. So I think it was last week, the Garden State Coalition of Schools had a meeting, and they had John Mooney from New Jersey Spotlight News. And for those New Jersey geeks out there, New Jersey Spotlight News is they merged with NJN last year, so now they're the single source of New Jersey-based news in the state. And he gave a really good perspective on a couple different issues, talking about school funding and some other areas. It was a really good program, really good session. I was glad that the Garden State Coalition Schools put something like that together. And I do highly recommend folks, I don't know what the web address is, but I think it's just njspotlightnews.com, is a really good resource for information. They recently put an article out there on school funding formula and what's going on in the state, so I recommend it. I also had, I'm forgetting what my other liaison report was. Oh, I had town rec last night. So we had that meeting last night. It was a really good meeting. A lot of it also centered around 2 issues. The pool reopening again, which I talked about the last meeting. So get your information in if you're looking to renew or become a new member of the town pool, Memorial Pool. And also, they talked a lot about the spring programs that are coming up. So if you go online, and I think Marianne was really good about providing the link the last time. If you go on there, you can see the different programs. They have, I think, as full a schedule as they've ever had, and great participation from the community. So look out for that. And those are my 2 liaison reports.
All right. I know that Layla was able to attend Jefferson PTO's meeting last week, and she had hoped to give us a little bit of a recap, but she wasn't able to join us tonight. So maybe she'll fill us in a little bit on that at our next meeting. Anybody else? No? All right then. In that case, this is the second portion of the meeting where we recognize the public for questions and for comments on any item. So again, if you have questions and you're watching the WebEx, let's see, Brian's going to open the Q&A session. Just type in your name and address. And if anyone has... Okay.
Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Okay.
Okay, Willard, you're unmuted.
Great, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity. My question relates to one of the issues that was raised in the personnel section when I think Aziz even recognized that there were a significant number of our educators who were going on leave, likely some, at least some because of the COVID situation. My daughter's in 5th grade at Tamaqua, and one of the teachers that is going on leave is one of her teachers. As I understand it, and as the teacher conveyed to all the students, that was not his decision to go on leave, but instead it was based on a requirement that all teachers begin teaching in person as of this coming Monday, which apparently is a district-wide directive. My question is, are there any exceptions to that directive? It is likely too late to address this time around, but when we do have educators that are willing to teach, albeit virtually, it seems like an inopportune time when those educators are being essentially asked to go on leave rather than risk their health to care person.
Sure, I can speak to that a bit. I certainly won't talk to any one individual, but I think I can speak to it in part. And again, I will not speak to any one individual. So in the beginning of the year, as was raised before, it's been challenging to have personnel this year. It's a very challenging year. We did have some teachers who said they could not arrange for childcare. Right? It was just too much of a challenge and they were not able to do it. We had other teachers who weren't able to be in school because of their own health. There were many different categories, but we had some teachers who it was for child rearing leaves. And so as you can imagine, teachers, right, many of them really worked through that. Some were able to come back in just a few weeks. Some came back after a few months. But we really do need our teachers in the buildings for reasons mentioned, for reasons that because we have continuing leaves for people who may have their own illness problems. So those who were on leave for child rearing were notified right at the beginning of 2021, in the beginning of January, that, you know, we've given this opportunity because we know you had a problem with child rearing, but please, going forward, we need you back by February. So we gave everyone a month. We need you back because we need you in person because we are struggling with personnel. And I'm glad to say that just about everybody was able to arrange that, right? I would also just add one other thing. No one would be on the agenda for a leave if the leave hadn't been requested, right? We wouldn't have made that up. So again, not speaking to any one individual person, but that's the story of addressing child rearing leaves. And as you can imagine, but every day there are challenges with people who have their own illnesses for one reason or another, never mind people who are quarantining. So there are so many different stories involved in all of this.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the public? Are you seeing any, Brian? Is anyone else?
I have someone sent something through the chat. So Lindsay Monahan, I'll unmute you now and you can ask your question. Go right ahead.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me. I've talked to a number of parents recently and throughout the school year. There seems to be an increase in other school districts where we know families, they are going to a more full schedule and opening up either for full-time or, you know, greater in-person learning, especially at the elementary level. What is the going forward? I know that we have a lot of hopes when we talk about different safety issues, but could you get more specific on what type of plan, you know, parents can look forward to or what's being done to work toward that?
So the guidelines come from the CDC. The CDC guidelines have not changed. if I were running a private school, I could determine how many classes of a given grade I can do. I could go in and I could measure those classrooms, and I could say this is how many openings I have. And when I fill the openings that I have, I can then put parents on waiting lists. But we're a public school, so if somebody moves in tomorrow with 7 children, I have to place those 7 children. I can't say there's not room. Right? So it's a very different circumstance. Additionally, there definitely are some districts, mainly elementary districts, but there are some districts in the state who have been able to allow children to come in for more days. I'm not an expert on all of them, and I have not found one place where all of the stories of all of the districts are listed. However, even as recently as last week, I keep on being asked why one neighboring district is able to allow children to come in more days. Well, I read it last week in one of the media accounts, because they only have something over, I think, 33% of their children, 33% of the parents want their kids to go to that school. If I had that percentage, I could figure something out. But I don't. I have about 80%, 75 or 80% of parents in Westfield want their children in school. They don't want them remote. So I can't fit them. When we had a change in the high school, as I mentioned earlier in this meeting, we did have a change for a whole variety of reasons. More high school students and their parents are choosing to go remote. When we saw that, that was an opportunity. The percentage at the high school went down to only approximately 25% of the parents and children wanted to be in person. Once I had that, we're able on Friday to open up the high school for cohorts A and B. All of those children can come for 4 days. But that only happens when the numbers work. And if the numbers work at any level, absolutely we'll do that. But they're not close at the elementary level. They're not close in the middle school level. And I have not heard that as recently as last week, the CDC reinforced the 6-foot rule. And that is the main thing that is impacting what we can do and what we cannot do.
Dr. Dolan, may I just follow up with a question? Because I think a lot of us have heard that, you've heard it. Just so I think it would be important for the public to know and for us as the board to know. What about the feasibility of having 2 sessions per day where they would have half the classes in the morning and half the classes in the afternoon, say 4 days a week in elementary school? What is the implication of that, or the feasibility where each one is, say, 3 hours or 2.5 hours?
Right. When we looked at that in the summer, the main concern was we would not be able to clean all the classrooms effectively between the morning session and the afternoon session. That was the main concern. Now, can we go back and look at that again and see if that's changed? Sure we can. But when we investigated it and tried it, we would not be able to do the type of cleaning that should be used right now during the pandemic. There's also, there's actually another concern that is challenging at most levels to schedule. Not impossible, but challenging to schedule the hours in the morning and the afternoon. I know that some districts have done it, but it is challenging. But the main thing was being able to clean, how much time you needed to get into every single classroom and do the cleaning and disinfecting that would need to be done.
May I ask a quick follow-on, Dr. Dolan, to my first question?
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Just a quick follow-on. It's Lindsay Monahan-Stein, and thank you so much for that explanation. That was really thorough. 2 parts. One, and I appreciate what Sahar said about, is there any sort of creativity where we could get at least in 4 or 5 days a week, albeit half days, or at least maybe implement a full day for the days where a cohort is in person. But some sort of, creativity, now that we've mastered a little bit more of the learning curve, we see what a great job the kids do in terms of cooperation and the staff is doing and the administration, that we could just, be a little bit more nimble at this time to really push forward for the students. That, and then Also, I know that the CDC, and I'm referencing the New York Times article where they recently did confirm what you said exactly about the CDC 6-foot masks, but that was also written in terms of children returning to school safely, and the CDC recommended this is possible with those measures.
Right. Let me take the second part first. Right. In not only the New York Times article, but in the actual research paper that was done by the 3 CDC researchers that was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, honestly, that was mainly geared towards the approximately 50% of the schools in the United States that have been remote since March. Right? Children have not had the opportunity to go to school since March. I don't know that the 50% is the right percent, but that's the one that's used. So those researchers were saying, here's what we studied, and if you follow the rules, you can reopen, right? Which is what we did. The schools they studied in Wisconsin that are working and there's no transmission are doing what we're doing. The article in JAMA also mentioned that you might have to use hybrid schedule with students alternating days. The actual research article said that. So what the researchers said is possible is honestly what we're doing. The question of full day, we do work with our regional health officer. We work with our school physician. I'm not the health expert or the medical expert. I know that. I know my limitations. What I am still told is that eating in person is a high-risk activity. Eating with others is a high-risk activity. And I continue to ask that because that would change things. Could we do a full day? Yes. But that hasn't changed. I don't know. I reached out, it was either yesterday or the day before, to ask what changes were going to come about and what changes are going to happen when people have vaccines. It's all still in flux, and we really have to count on the health experts. And we do, again, it was Monday or Tuesday where I reached out again, and we're trying to find ways where we can bring people more in. This week, what we can do is the high school, and I'm constantly monitoring what they're saying, and I'm constantly reaching out to our local experts in the field. And if we definitely have local experts who are parents who have reached out over the several months. And if any of those parents have any suggestions, we absolutely will listen to them. But we're right now trying to do the best we can.
We have 2 more questions. We have one from Matthew. Matthew, I will unmute you now. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for taking my question. Thanks for your time. I'm following up on the first question. The first person asked about the teacher at Tamaulipas. It's an unfortunate situation right now. Initially when we were told that the teacher would be teaching virtually from home, we honestly were not very thrilled about that. And it was, we thought it'd be problematic. Mr. Dulks assured us that, things would be done properly. And really it was, and above and beyond really what we thought, and the education that in that class has really been, I think, superb. We're very happy with it. And unfortunately, that's going to have to change now. And it just seems to me that this timeline to return to school is somewhat arbitrary. Like, why does he need to come back, or any teacher need to report back February 8th versus May versus back in January? Like, there's nothing that has changed. Our students are still in a hybrid model, and they're still going to school the same way that they did 2 months ago, and they're probably going to go for the rest of the year. It just doesn't seem right or fair to do this to the teachers and disrupt the students. These kids have been thrown significant curveballs, as you all know, throughout the whole year, and they do, and they adapt. And now we're going to be put in a position where we need to adapt again. And like the last person said, I agree. We need to be nimble and do what is best for our students. And I definitely do not think that this is best for this class. And I think a lot of parents would agree. Thank you.
I think I would just say I can't speak to individual personnel issues. I tried to explain the situation when I answered previously.
And we have a question from Nicole. Nicole, I'll unmute your microphone now. Go right ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Nicole Klinger, and I have 3 children at Wilson School. I have Jack, who is in 3rd grade, and I have twins, Robert and Vivian, who are in 1st grade. And, you know, I've not joined one of these meetings before, and I will tell you that I believe I've been talking to a lot of parents, and we actually are just looking for answers. We're very fed up with just, I think, the board and everyone thinking that we're complacent. You know, I can speak to a few things to just jump off Monahan, that there have been numerous schools. I think the bottom line is just, I think, looking outside the box. There was a key word mentioned, keywords, not impossible. So, you know, what needs to be relooked at? I had such high hopes, honestly, for this school year where our kids were going hybrid. That was great, right? Other kids weren't starting hybrid, and we were. But now, after how many months, no outbreaks, no cases, very few cases, showing that it's not transmitted in schools. I think the board needs to know that we are honestly not okay at home. We're not going to let our kids struggle. Our jobs are suffering. I have to sit with my twins every day and handhold them with their teacher. Their teacher is fabulous, but it is not working. And so I guess my question is, what is going to be looked at to change this? It's not sustainable, and it's honestly not fair to our kids. They're not flourishing. They're struggling. You know, Hohokus, 5 days a week, either AM or PM. Ocean City, reopening February 1st. We're looking for something. We're not even given a bone here with anything. We feel that progress, you know, or we've, I don't know, remained, I don't know how many cases, I don't know the answer to that question, but from what I've heard as far as Wilson School, is that, you know, schools are not where it's transmitting. So I think we need to be given something, parents need to be given something to look forward to, and their kids to be looking forward to, because it's not working as great as everybody thinks it is.
I think there's no doubt that this is difficult, or it feels impossible to a lot of our parents. I think everybody understands that. Especially, I would argue, for students who are younger and for students who have some specific needs, right, at different ages. There's no doubt of that. It's understood. And as you noted, the teachers really are trying the best they can, but it's challenging for them as well. There's no doubt to it. You're right what you said, that they're seeing that they haven't found transmissions in schools, right? The article in JAMA mentioned that. When the rules are followed, they haven't found transmissions in schools. And then that article reiterated the rules. I mean, that's the thing I can't change. I can't change the rules. I have to follow the rules. And I can't exactly tell you why it works in some districts other than others. Other than I know, in general, it's because the numbers are lower there. It's a smaller percentage of the parents who are sending their children. And when that percentage changed, we acted on it. We did move. Where we couldn't move, we moved. And we'll continue to look for that. And we'll continue to follow what the CDC says. And I don't minimize how hard it is. You have 3 young children, and you're working, I think you said. Or whether you're working or not, it doesn't quite matter. You have 3 young children who are home very often for their school. That's really challenging. You have 3 young children who are working on the computer for hours. That's very challenging, and it's been for too long a time. And we don't see a change coming next week. I can't minimize that. That's very difficult. But the teachers and the rest of us are trying to find the opportunities we can.
So I'd just like to add something as a board member. First, I want to thank everyone, all the Thank you, Dr. Dolan, for your response. Thanks, everyone, the residents and the parents. I think that one thing, in addition to what Dr. Dolan is saying, I think what your point is taken in terms of perhaps a solution is having to spend more money, right? In terms of having to have more janitorial staff to clean the schools in a short amount of time, and that might be something that we have to discuss, and that might be, something that will affect the taxpayer, because residents are eager to have more services, but there's also more money involved. But I think that your points are all taken, and I know Dr. Dolan is doing her best, but I just want to make sure, at least as a board member, that I also respond, and with someone with young children and elementary school kids, I feel the pain. So I think the point is taken in terms of maybe reassessing what we've done in the summer when I wasn't on the board, so I don't know. But I just wanted to at least acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think as someone who talks regularly with our administrators, I can echo what Dr. Dolan has said, that there is a constant reassessing of what are we doing, and is there a way to make changes to what we do to work around these requirements that we want to follow for the health and safety of our students and health and safety of our staff. And I know as parents, we see our children in our homes, and that is our primary focus, and it should be our primary focus. But we also have to keep in mind all the people that work in the schools and their safety as well. And so when the CDC tells us that we need to keep 6 feet apart, we have to keep 6 feet apart. And we can't expand the walls of our classrooms in order to keep the same number of a full-size class and maintain that distance. They weren't built with that in mind. And as we said earlier in the meeting, we have older facilities. We can't, they're not as spacious as we might like in a circumstance like that. And I know that's frustrating, and it's not an easy answer. And I hear your frustration as a parent, and please know that our administrators do keep looking at making changes where they possibly can. And we as a community have to hope that as we get more people vaccinated, that maybe things will change, and maybe the CDC will be able to reassess the guidelines that apply to everyone else. I know that's not a next week fix, it's not a next month fix, but we have to hope there's light out there.
Yeah, and Amy, if I may jump in for a second too, is that a lot of the participants or attendees of the meeting tonight aren't usual or regular attendees, and one thing you'll notice is that we're a board by committee, and so as you heard the committee reports, we meet usually once a month. Like this week I have 2, I think next week I have 2. And, you may just see us here for an hour or 2 on these board meetings, but almost to every time that we have a committee meeting, this topic comes up. So it's not something that we just discussed tonight. It's something that you as board president and Brendan as board vice president talk regularly with the administrators. And then we as board members and then attending the committees that we're on, we talk about this. It's not an easy thing to deal with. And, I represent the liaison for Wilson, as I mentioned in the past. And so even when we're talking to the principals or we're talking to the PTOs, we try to, get the sense of where the parents are and where other residents are. And it's not something that we just, leave up to the district or leave up to the health officials for that matter. It really comes down to the constant reassessment, the plan we put in place, and the plan is a pretty extensive plan. And we are trying to figure out ways to adapt and change. And if there's an ability to expand what we're doing, I know that's something that the district would like to do, but as of right now, it's just something that doesn't make sense for the district.
Yeah, Amy, if I could just pipe in for 1 second too. I mean, I think if you even just think about tonight's meeting, if you do a snapshot, the ways in which this pandemic has dictates every single part of our conversation. I mean, we're talking about how we're suffering in terms of our ability to staff our classrooms. We're talking about, how we're suffering in terms of making sure, how a slight technology glitch or not so slight can disrupt an entire planning. And so we can't use snow days. I mean, it is consuming the district on almost every level and every single household. I mean, elementary, middle school, high school, kids can't visit colleges. I mean, and so not to minimize any single person's experience, but I think it's really important that everybody appreciates that Westfield isn't making these decisions just in isolation. And to the extent that everybody's comparing what they hear is going on 5 districts away or half a state away or whatever, Dr. Dolan is in almost constant communication, I imagine. I mean, that was my experience, at least, with other superintendents. And so if there are out-of-the-box ways to sort of navigate this, a district of like size, she's going to have heard about it. And I'm almost certain that it will have been something that will have been discussed. All of that said, there is absolute value in sort of revisiting things that we may have found not viable originally, and maybe they can be now, and what does that look like, and are we able to accommodate it? But I just think it's important to know that, I mean, Dr. Dolan, I assume that you and other superintendents are just in constant communication about this.
That's absolutely true. I mean, the last 2 days we were more in conversation about snow, but other than that, we are in constant conversation, trying to find new ways and seeing who's successful.
Amy, watching the Q&A, we have a question from Anne-Marie Mora, follow-up to her earlier statement, asking what about for elementary schools, cohorts going full day and just going home for lunch? And then we do have another, we have Lorna Dragon with a question as well.
Right. And I'll just speak for just a second. I don't know if Dr. Dolan has any thoughts about cohorts going for full day but going home in the middle of the day. Ironically, that's how our schools were actually built, a lot of the older ones. People have said for years, why don't we have cafeterias? Where are these children supposed to eat? When Wilson School was built in 1936, I think it was, that's what kids did. They went home, and even into the 70s and 80s, I think they were still going home for an hour and a half in the middle of the day. So, yeah, and I'm sure it's something that's been considered, and I'm sure it's something that has been possibly rejected just because of the logistical components of getting working parents to get their kids to and from school. But I don't know, Dr. Dolan, if you have anything you wanted to add about that concept.
You're correct. It was discussed by the committee over the summer, and for the very reasons you mentioned. It certainly could work for some families. I do understand that, but it certainly could not work for all families for a variety of reasons.
And then we have to add in the legal liability of young kids walking home, their parents aren't available, and then walking back to school.
I do have a question about the eating restriction, because I know that for my daughter, she is eating at snack time and that they haven't figured out a way to make that work. So can you share a little bit about the difference between them being allowed to have snacks sitting 6 feet apart for example, at Wilson, where my daughter is, versus having lunch 6 feet apart in the same manner? Is that something that we can't accomplish, but we can with snack?
The majority of snacks, students are going, if not completely outside, then to some area that is open. I don't know if that's the case with your daughter, but that's what's happening. So that is, there's a greater air exchange, and they're still 6 feet apart. I would also say, generally speaking, lunch is longer. But I will mainly say that I mean, every time I talk to the health people, eating with others is a high-risk activity. Even in snack, even our young kids, when they are having snack, when they are not actually eating, they have their masks on, right? It's a constant, they're not taking their masks off and having snack. They have their mask on. And when they take a bite or a sip, they're taking the mask off and then putting it back on, because it is a high-risk activity.
Lorna, you'd like to ask your question? I'll unmute you now.
question. And thanks for taking the parents' questions so seriously and for really taking the time to all contribute to the answers. It really goes a long way and helps give visibility into really what's going on in some of the points from your side. To build on Emery's question about, the opportunity to bring the kids back after lunch, I think that's a really great idea. I do know that logistics are one part, but just keep in mind that we are having to be responsible and figure out a way to get them home. So it's only, one more return and then it's a normal pickup as a regular school day. So it's really not a big fundamental shift. If we're already making the half day work, then an extra return for afternoon so they can continue to learn, I think is a great, something to really consider and think about for the, the rest of the school year. I have 4 children of my own, and what I wanted to share with you is just a little bit of perspective from my side is that I have 2 kids in elementary school, and I intended to send my 3rd child to kindergarten, but because of the school schedule, it wasn't going to work for my child to be in school that infrequently, and so now I'm paying for private preschool. In addition to that, I paid for private tutors this summer to help supplement the spring semester. And there's also other financial, there's a lot of people doing pods, which have money cost money as well to the parents. So when you think about going back to some of the, the increases to the taxpayers, I just want to share with you that there's a lot of money being spent in compensating for what's happening right now. And we still I feel like a broken parent. I feel like I've never worked so hard, in my life at work and at school and trying to, just keep my kids' heads above the water. So I wanted to share that with you just for consideration that when you do meet in your subcommittees and that we are offsetting. Super fortunate, right? Super fortunate that we're able to help offset. But it's there's a cost to that, a financial cost and emotional cost and everything that goes along with setting that up. And me personally not being a teacher or in that profession, this is not my wheelhouse. So I wanted to share that perspective and just as a takeaway and a build to everything that's been talked about tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Gives new meaning to the days are long, but the years are short, right? The days are really long. Thank you. Any other questions from the public at this time? Comments? No, Brian? Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight and for speaking up with your concerns. We really value hearing from you. You can also always send emails to the board, which many people in the community have taken advantage of. But if for any reason you didn't feel like speaking up tonight, you could also choose that. Our email is on the board tab of the district website as well. At this time, we had spoken at the beginning among ourselves. At this time, we're going to shift to a different kind of format. We have a workshop, which is open to the public. You're certainly allowed to stay and participate. A representative from an association that serves all board members in New Jersey School Boards Association, field representative is going to give us a presentation on key things for board members to know. We try to do this at the beginning of every year, and particularly when we have new board members in general. In particular, sorry. Brian, are we switching over to the other WebEx link? What's our procedure?
Yes.
What are we going to do?
Gwen is in the other link, so we have to go out of this one and go into that other link. Not the executive session link, but the link that Brian just sent at 7:03, I think.
And then we'll go to executive session after the workshop?
Correct.
And there will be a private session after the workshop tonight. That's right. For anybody who wants to follow along, in the agenda itself, in that second paragraph is the link for the workshop, correct?
Yes.
Brian, right? Yes. Okay. All right. So we are going to click out of here, click into the new one.
Yes.
And I will see you all there. And so we're not adjourning because we're still in public, correct, Dana?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. See you in the new link.